All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar today with our lovely Chantel. And just so you're aware, we will be recording. If you do not wish to be your face captured on the recording, you can just turn off your camera. We will be taking questions. I will be keeping an eye on the chat and letting Chantel know about any questions that pop up. If you feel more comfortable, say, asking your question out loud, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. All right, Chantel, it's all yours.
Okay, perfect. So I just dropped the handout that goes along with the presentation into the chat. If you can't get it, I know on iPhone, if you're watching on phones, it doesn't always work. So just let Kylie know, and maybe Kylie, you can email them out if people need them that way. And I will just share my screen here. Okay, there we go. So really quickly, I'm Chantal. I'm a business counselor with PARO. I've been with PARO for about 1.5 years now. I have a background in, I went to school to be a teacher, and then I did my master's in library information studies. I ran a movie theater for a little while with my family. And now I'm a business counselor for PARO, and I'm on town council in Marathon as well. So really quickly, that's my background. That's not what we're super interested in today. So we'll just get right into the sustainable livelihoods model. I'm just going to shrink you guys because you're taking up half my screen here. There we go. Okay. So basically, the sustainable livelihoods model is meant to give you a look at what your assets are. And helping you figure out where you need to focus some of your attention on where you need to grow. So the obvious one people always see really easily, people know really easily, is your financial assets, right? Like you know financially fairly well if you're doing well or not. So the other ones we're going to look at on top of that is looking at human, social, physical, and personal, the sections that all play a role in your life, which in turn plays a role in your business as well. It's all attached. So by understanding what your strengths and challenges are, it lets you be more prepared for any crises, anything that comes that could throw your personal life off track or your business off track, right? Like we're one person. So if you're the owner of a business, and something in your personal life takes you way off track, that could definitely affect your business as well. So it's just knowing what those areas are, being aware of them, and knowing that so you can be prepared. So this is what the sustainable livelihoods model looks like. It is in the handout that I posted in the chat. What I'd like you to do today is just draw this little pentagon. That way you can make one today while we're talking. There is, like, the handout has one, so when you've got a chance to print it out, you can do it again in 6 months or a year or whatever. But what I would suggest is just making this same shape, have these 5 different sections, and then we'll go through each one and fill them out together and look at what each shape could mean at the end. I'll give you guys all a minute to do that. Okay. Oops. So I like to start. So this is basically what you're going to do for each section. You're going to write down what your assets are, and we'll go through each one so you know what goes into each section. But you're going to write down what your financial assets are, your social assets, personal assets, human assets, and physical assets. You're going to write down all the things that you have in those boxes, and then you're going to grade yourself in each section from a 0, which means you have no assets in that area, to a 5, which means you have everything you need and more. And be be realistic with yourself. This is really a tool meant for you. If you have a business counselor or BGA you're working with in PARO, feel free to share it with them so they can help you gain some of those skills or learn where you are in some of those sections. But this is meant for you more than anybody else. So be honest. So don't feel embarrassed if you're at a 0. Yeah. And be honest that if you're not at a 5 either, right? If you're at a 4, you want to get yourself to a 5. 5 should be pretty hard to get. So I like to start with the financial assets. That's kind of the section most of us are aware of what we have. So that's looking at things like your income, savings, your any possessions, if you've got a good understanding of your money and how to manage it, your personal attitudes, and if you have control over your money and assets, or if somebody else does, your husband or your mom or whoever it might be that has that control. So when you're looking at the financial assets, here's some questions to ask yourself. Oops. There you go. So do you have a good financial knowledge? Do you know what you're doing when you're looking at money? Do you know how to make investments and things like that? Do you know how to do your savings? Do you have strong financial skills? So that might be something you need to learn. Do you know how to do some budgeting? And knowing that means you can ask your PARO BGA where to get that information, or you can go looking on your own. You have more credit than you have debt. So it's always a good thing, right? You don't want to be in debt, but be honest. We all go through phases in our lives where our debt is high. And just being realistic with yourself where you're at. So you might be in the middle, you might be over your head with your debt, you'll be at 0. And these things change. Again, like I mentioned, do you have control over your money and assets? If you don't, who does? And what is your attitude towards money? So what I mean when I'm talking what's your attitude towards money is knowing your value of money, right? So if you provide a service in your business, are you valuing yourself properly there? Not undervaluing yourself. So I'll give you guys all a minute to think about that. If you've got any questions, I can't see the chat, but if there's questions about this section, I'll give you guys a chance to fill it out. Kylie, you can just let me know, or you can unmute yourselves and let me know your questions here. So we'll move on to physical assets. And when you're looking at physical assets, it's things like your housing, food, safety, transportation, and if you have any children or anyone you take care of, making sure you have that care. So the questions for that section that you've got to ask yourself is, do you have safe and comfortable housing? Even if you have housing, that doesn't necessarily mean it's what you need. Do you have an apartment or a house that's big enough for all your children? Is it somewhere you feel safe? And rank yourself again 0 to 5 in there. Do you have access to child or elderly care or whatever supports you need in your house? Do you have access to resources and technology? Do you have access to transportation? That doesn't necessarily need to mean you have your own vehicle, but do you have access to be able to use public transportation if you need to get to work or to your doctor's appointments or wherever it is you need to go? And with that, sometimes it's a little strange to think this one falls in here, but do you have hobbies and recreational outlets? Do you have somewhere to spend some of your time that gives you that outlet a little bit? So again, I'll give you guys a minute to write down all your assets, all your physical assets, and then rank yourself in that area from 0 to 5. And the next section I usually look at is human assets. And I know I'm not going in order, in any kind of order that's on the shape here, but so when you're looking at your human assets, it's looking at yourself. So looking at your goal setting, looking at your mental and physical health, your education, your skills. Are you able to work and retain your work? And your ability to continue to learn and develop skills. So this one, like I said, you're looking internally. So how is my mental and physical health? And again, be honest with yourself. With COVID and being in the pandemic, it might be a little worse than it would have been before, and that's okay. These sustainable livelihood models are meant to change with you. So I would recommend doing them every 6 months, or whenever you feel you've had some changes in your life and it's worth a look again. Are you able to work? Are you able to keep your job? And if not, knowing what it is that's stopping you from being able to do that, so you can work on that or reach out and get help in that area. You have a lot of different skills, and your skills can be from education, it can be from your work experience, can be from volunteering, it could be from your hobbies or your activities that we talked about. So just knowing what those skills are, and I want you to make a list. What is it that you've got skills in? Do you know another language? And the last question to ask here is, am I able to set and reach my goals? And we'll talk about goals a little bit further in the presentation. And we will have a full webinar. I don't think we have a date set yet, but we'll have a full webinar on goal setting as well later. So I'll give you guys a minute again here. Okay, so the next section is looking at your social assets. So looking at if you have family, friends, community that supports you, any leadership skills that you have, and your political literacy and your ability to take action. So the questions to ask in this section is, do you have support from friends, family, and my community? So that could be support for your business. That could be support when something goes wrong in your personal life and you need that support from others. Do you have people to rely on that can help you, or that you can just talk to when things are going wrong and you need that chat? Are you able to keep a work-life balance? And be honest, because I know entrepreneurs, that's often something that's really hard to do. You want your business to be a success. So are you working too much and not taking that time for yourself, for your family? So be honest with this question. Are you able to lead? Do you have that leadership role in your job, or those opportunities to become that leader when it's needed, especially if you do have your own business? Being able to have those skills, and those skills you can learn. So just knowing if that's an area you need to focus on. And then finally, am I able to speak out for community or for political change? So if there's something you see that's going wrong in your community, or that you think could be better in your community, do you know how to take those steps? Do you know, are you comfortable making your voice heard in that? And knowing that could be to make your community better. And that doesn't mean your community necessarily just where you live. That could be your church community, your business community, some of your recreational communities, wherever it is that you want to make that change, just making yourself sure you're comfortable to speak out. So our next section, and I think it's our final section now, so personal assets. So that's looking at yourself again, looking at your identity, your self-esteem, your motivation, and your independence. So how do you value yourself? And think about that for a minute, because it's a tough one sometimes. Do you find yourself valuable? How motivated am I? And that could be, again, in your business or in your personal life. Think about it in both scenarios. Am I spiritual? And that one, for some people, that'll be a no, and that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll take you down. But for those that are part of a spiritual group, that might make you feel more at peace, and help you increase that number. Do you have a strong cultural identity? And how does that benefit you? Can you do things on your own? Do you need someone to help you? And that's okay too. It's just knowing what your limits are. And the final question in this section, do I have control over my life? So I'll give you all a minute to look at that section as well and write down all your assets. Give yourself a rank from 0 to 5 in there. Okay, so once you've ranked yourself everywhere, I want you to color each section. So let me just go back to our original. So right here, I want you to split each box into 5 and color each one however you ranked it from 0 to 5, and that'll give you a different shape. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds to do that. I know you should have your ranks already. Yep. So you'll come up with different shapes, and it might not look like any of these. So if you found yourself ranking yourself from 0 to 2 on most sections, you'll have a shape that looks something like this. You might have a section that goes further, an area that you're more confident in. And that means you're in what we call the survival mode. So your needs aren't met. So the main things you need to do right away is looking for better employment, because most likely that means your basic needs aren't met, right? So you might need better housing, transportation, some of your financial sections, right? So that's going to be the big thing. Looking at those mental health supports to make sure you can get your personal sections up a little bit more, and looking for those social connections. And then this section, for most people, if you're in the survival section, you don't have a safety net. You don't have any savings. You don't have anything to fall back on if something happens. So this is a really tough section to be in. And if you're in the section, I want you to be honest. I want you If you've got a PARO BGA, I want you to tell them, because they can help you look for some of those supports. Especially if you don't have those social connections to have that conversation with, and let them know that you're struggling and that you need some of that help. So if you were able to color in a little bit more, you might be in the section called exploring possibilities. So that means your needs are met. Some of your goals you've been able to meet as well. So you've been able to set yourself some goals, and you're starting to meet those goals. You're starting to see some growth in your personal life and in your business. You still need some more savings and maybe some more support, but it's not as bad as that survival mode. You have a couple people you can talk to, or you're starting to get a little bit of savings, or at least you're not living maybe paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you've got a little bit more comfort there. And once you've hit this section, you can set some longer term goals. So you can look at a couple months from now. So instead of focusing on day to day what you need to do, you can look at, okay, what am I going to do in 3 months? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to be in 6 months? When you've grown a little bit before that, you'll be kind of in this arrow section. Then your color will grow a little bit more. You'll have a little bit of savings, and then you can set yourself some longer term goals again. And then finally, if you've got your whole box covered, which I think is pretty rare, and I know certainly mine isn't completely colored. I don't have a 5 in each box. It means you've got enough income for all of your needs, plus your extra. You've got some comfort there. You've got a good job, that you've got some advancement opportunities, or you've got a business that you're growing. If you're in your own business, so you see lots of growth opportunities there. Here you can really start setting those longer term goals. So looking at what's going to happen in 1 year from now or 2 years from now. So you're at that comfort level of being able to look further in the future. And here you have a lot of savings. You have tons of support from friends, family, community, wherever it is you get that support. And our goal with PARO, and just for yourself, is to move you, if you're in the survival box, is to help you move from there up to hopefully the sustainable livelihoods where you're 5 everywhere. But even if you don't ever hit the 5 everywhere, because that's pretty tough, at least getting you to somewhere where you're comfortable and seeing that growth and able to look at longer term goals. So just being honest with yourself where your assets are and where those challenges are will really help you be able to move along those areas. So I'm just going to stop sharing here for a second. So I just want to see everyone's faces, see how everyone's feeling after filling in your assets, and hear any comments you might have, or if you feel like sharing where you're at with those models. Nobody? Okay, that's okay. I know, like I said at the beginning, it's a personal thing, so I have no problem if nobody wants to share. So I'll just continue sharing screen then, and we're going to look at some of the goal setting. Like I said, this is just going to be a really basic run through of goal setting, because we do have a full webinar coming up. We don't have Lori here to tell us for sure what date. I don't think there was a date set yet, but.
No, there's no date set yet. I don't think we're doing it till September though.
I think so too. But we'll let everybody know. So at least this will give you an overview of goal setting, and then you can attend the longer one when that date does come. So it's about setting personal goals. So depending where you're at in your sustainable livelihoods model and looking at which sections you want to focus on, that could help dictate where you want those goals to be. So looking at what you want your assets to change, what do you want to have in 6 months? in a year, in 5 years, and depending, like I said before, depending where you're at in that model, maybe looking at 5 years is too far in the future. Maybe you're looking at your assets is going to be, what you want is having a safe house. Until you have that, it's going to be really hard to focus on anything else. So I'll give you guys a second to think about what some of those goals might be. Could be learning some of the skills that you realized through this that you're lacking. And I want you to do the same thing for those of you guys that have a business. I want you to take a look, describe what your business success is right now. So do you have savings in your business? And you don't necessarily need to do the whole model, but just thinking about where your business is at right now. And where would you like it to be, again, in 6 months? It says 3 years on here, but if that's too long in the future, think about 6 months. Or 1 month, if even 6 months is too much. It really depends on where you're at. And then you need to make a plan on how to get there. So what are you going to do? How are you going to take ownership for making that happen? So are you going to tell somebody what those goals are? If you've got a PARO counselor, share what that goal is with them, and they can keep you accountable. Your next meeting, they can say, okay, Kylie, did you reach this goal that you wanted to? Did you hire that person to give you that better work-life balance yet? And they'll be able to ask you and keep you accountable to that goal. Just allowing it to happen and making the effort to reach that goal. So I find, for myself at least, if I write down my goal, I'm more likely to take it seriously and to really make those goals, take the steps to make that goal. If I keep it in my head, I don't tell anybody, I don't write it down, I could forget about it and realize, in 6 months, I never actually did anything on that goal. And when you're setting your goals, making sure there's something realistic and a clear goal. So if you're if you're in business and your business revenue is 50,000 this year, don't make your goal to be over $1 million next year, right? Set something realistic. Set a goal that you can hit. And then make sure you're looking at that progress. See where you're going if you're getting close to reaching that goal. And celebrate those little achievements. You see your revenue growing. Take a chance, make yourself a cake, give yourself a pat on the back, do a little happy dance, whatever it is. Take that couple of seconds or a whole day and celebrate where you've gotten. And then check back in 6 months. So especially if you've got a PARO BGA or counselor or somebody in your community that you're sharing with, share with them, check back with them in 6 months and see where you've gone. And there's a little quote from Roz here that I really like. So you can be anything you want to be, but first you have to know what you want. And that is the hard part. So it's really about taking that time and looking inward and focusing on what you want and figuring out what you want. Okay, and that's it. So if anybody's got questions, I'm going to stop sharing again. Or if anybody wants to share what their sustainable livelihoods looks like, what I would suggest is we might not have another webinar in 6 months, but in that handout that I shared and that I see Kylie's reshared, take that handout. It lists all the different areas and point form what each section means. So do it again in 6 months. See where that growth has been. And you can even, like, for some things, you'll be able to see that growth in a month already, for maybe, right? It could take longer depending on which section you're working on and where you're at already too. So does anyone have any questions or have anything they want to share that they learned about themselves or are unsure of in their model? No, we got a quiet group today. Oh, go ahead, Ellie.
So when you were reading through, and thank you so much for actually reading the points through, that was helpful in processing. I found, for example, I think it was in the human section, like the internal section. Personally, there were a lot. I think I'm great. Just let's put it out there to the world. I think I'm great most days. I do have down days, and even though I do have some of the assets and I think, okay, yeah, I'm so super fantastic, my superpowers don't shine all the time. And so how do you waver that? Because if I thought of it on a good day, well, yeah, I feel like, I could be maybe a 2 or 3. I'm not maybe a 5 quite yet, but I'm at the 2-3 stage. Today, I might not have such a good moment. How do you rate that accordingly when you have one of those bad moments?
So what I would do when you're doing it is rate it the way you feel on that day. And then if you have lots of different good days or bad days, do it again in a week if you think your model will have changed in that week, right? So do it how you feel and be honest with how you feel. And for you, that might mean your model changes from day to day if you're having, and it does to some extent for everybody, especially that, that mental health section, and that self-esteem section, right, is really looking inward. So that section will change, maybe more often than something like your housing situation, right? Like your housing, when you make a move, will change, sure, but that's not every day that you're moving. I hope nobody has to move that often, and if you do, that means you're a 0 in that section, and you need some help in getting something more secure and more safe. So I hope that makes sense, Ellie.
That does make more sense. So thank you so much. Because when I'm in a group like this, honestly, I feel more with it. I feel okay. I see the faces, I see the community. There's a number of people here. But if I know that if you had just handed me this document and said rate it, and I'm sitting here on my own and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there's a stack of work or clients I need to call, my mental awareness would be so very much different. And I would think, no, I'm so overwhelmed, and I automatically would put a 0. Even though I do have some of those skills, I could get through the tasks. But thank you.
Yeah, I think we all have those moments that we feel that way too. At least I do. I don't know about everybody, but for sure I do. And I just see Christina's got a really great comment. If you have an opportunity to consult any mentors or trusted contacts, they can be a sanity check for you. So if you want, in six months or 1 month or whenever you feel like redoing this work, LA, I think you've got a PARO BGA, do it with them. And if you don't, we can set you up with one. So you look unsure. If you don't have someone you meet with, well, we can set you up with someone that can do this work with you. And that's who can keep you accountable and help you figure out if those mental health supports aren't there, figuring out where you can helping you figure out where to get those supports, or whatever supports it is, whichever section it is that's lower. So, and if it's not a BGA, do it with your mom or whoever it is you feel comfortable, if it's easier to do with somebody than on your own. That's all I have. So if no one else has questions, we'll have an early day.
All right. So if anybody would like to request a copy of the recording for today, please feel free to email me at communications@paro.ca. I will put it in the chat right now. And again, it's communications with an S @paro.ca. If you go to communication, you will get no response. I'm sorry. All right. Any closing remarks at all, Chantel?
No, thank you everybody for coming. I hope that it was helpful to you. And like I said, feel free if you're comfortable, share that that drawing that you made with your BGA or with a support who can help you in those areas that you need that extra help, because we all need the help sometimes. So go ahead, Sean.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this. There's an awful lot of information here, and it's going to take a little bit to digest. Maybe that's why we're all a bit quiet. I know certainly why I am, but yeah, really good presentation. Thank you.
And it's definitely a topic that needs time to reflect on, especially when you're reflecting on your own, on where you are at, right? It's not just reflecting on the information, but it's reflecting on how it looks to you. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. That presentation or the handout again is in the chat. And if you don't have it there, you can email Kylie or Lori, and I can make sure they both have that copy too, so they can get out to you. Okay, have a nice afternoon.